Joining us now, one of our favorites, definitely a Texas hometown guy, Texas Congressman and presidential candidate, Dr. Ron Paul. Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good morning.
Well, how did you spend Easter? I see that you're back in Texas. Did you spend it at home?
Yes, we had about 32 family members here, and we had a lot of church in the morning and Easter egg hunts and dinner in the afternoon.
Well, you're going to spend the next 3 days, it looks like, traveling around Texas and doing a little campaigning here. Where are you going? Who are you going to talk to, and what do you hope to accomplish?
We start off with A&M. That'll be tomorrow. Then the next day we'll be in Dallas, and the next day I think it's San Antonio. So we will be attending the universities because that's where we get these large crowds out. Last week, we were in California, and even to my surprise, we always have nice crowds, but they kept getting bigger. So we go where the action is, and the young people are certainly very interested in what I'm doing.
They're very, very interested, Congressman Paul. In fact, your backers are so loyal, first and foremost, to you, that can sometimes be in contrast even to the Republican Party. Is there any chance you're considering a third-party candidacy?
Not really, because I'm so busy doing what I'm doing, and that's a job. So I have no plans, no intention of doing that. Nothing along those lines as far as I'm concerned.
As I start reading more and more about your candidacy, and as you're being covered around the country, I can't read an article about you where somebody doesn't say, when will Representative Ron Paul drop out of the race? So I'm going to ask you, are you going to drop out of the race?
Well, it just seems, there's a little disconnect if you say, do I expect to win the nomination tomorrow or next week? And, you have to be realistic. No, it's not likely to happen. I mean, all kinds of things do happen in politics. People, come and go as far as their popularity goes and the votes they get. But for me to drop out of the race right now wouldn't make any sense, especially to those many, many tens of thousands. Actually, we get donations from over 150,000, and the enthusiasm is there, so it would be very hard for me I'd feel like I was deserting the ship is what I would do, because their enthusiasm is growing, not being diminished.
Dr. Paul, the Washington Post has a story out about you today, and it says when it comes to the future of the GOP presidential race, you matter more than Newt Gingrich, and it points out the ideas of domestic policy that are really influencing the race. Where do you want your voice to be heard between now and August?
Well, basically, the big picture is more liberty, less government. As governments grow, people's personal liberties are undermined in all areas, whether it's social liberty or economic liberty, and I think people are starting to feel the pinch. Young people seem to recognize this more. But I also talk a lot, not only about domestic policy. I believe we're in a debt crisis. You can't solve the debt with more debt, and the world is really suffering from a huge amount of debt, which is growing exponentially. I don't think you can solve the problem without looking at the monetary issue and the Federal Reserve, and I think it's foolish not to have a really full debate on our foreign policy, because the American people are now talking about when are we going to come home.
Representative Paul, if you'd hold on, we're going to do traffic and weather really quickly. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about President Obama and some of the things that he has said in the last week. Dr. Paul, this last week, President Obama got in a little bit of trouble about comments he made concerning Obamacare and the Supreme Court. What was your reaction when you heard what he had to say?
It probably wasn't as strong as some others had. Obviously, he was out of step by sort of telling the Supreme Court what they ought to do, and the executive branch is not supposed to put pressure on the judicial branch. But when I think and put it into context, think back to Roosevelt. He was packing the court because he didn't like them, and he tried to, coerce the courts to do what they want. But, there's the separations of powers it doesn't work very well, because presidents go to war without a declaration. Presidents are writing executive orders all the time as pieces of legislation. All the regulations that we write are laws, and that should be only done by the legislative branch. So we're way out of whack. So this is not good, but in context of how much the separations of powers has collapsed, I think it's rather minor, but obviously he got some grief over it, and he deserved it.
As you go out and speak on college campuses, one of the things we can't help but notice when you go out and speak, especially to young people, is the passion that surrounds the energy of these folks who are listening and following your campaigns. You're also, it seems like, making Paul babies in terms of what's happening for the future members of Congress and the Senate, people who want to take that spark and run with it. What are you saying to them?
Well, probably the same thing and that I say to everybody, and it surprises me and pleases me as much as anybody else because I come across these individuals. All of a sudden they say, "Oh, I'm a city councilman. I'm on the county commissioner's court, or I'm a state representative." And it's not one or two; it's dozens and dozens of people I meet on the campaign trail. So I think it sort of represents a starvation for some answers and some beliefs and some convictions, and they find it's very positive to think about, freedom for the individual, the Constitution, American traditions, and a little bit of trust in ourselves rather than saying, anytime there's a problem, the government's supposed to take care of me, and the government knows what's best for me and what's best for the world, and the government knows how to run the economy, and yet it's staring in the face that it's not working so well. So I'm very pleased when I see these individuals who are placing themselves in places where they may well be there for quite a few years.
Dr. Paul, on the record, my last question for you, just yes or no. You planning on staying in the race through the convention?
As of now, yes, that's what my plan is, because we don't know exactly where we'll be. We don't know when there will be a nominee picked, and also I don't know how many delegates I'm going to have, because right now there's a lot in the mill, a lot of in the process going through. So we don't know exactly where we're going. It's going to have to take at least a couple of months before you can make a final decision.
Always nice to talk to you. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your morning with us this morning. That's Texas Congressman and presidential candidate in it to win it, Ron Paul.